Welcome to the Thrive for Life podcast. I am your host, Adrienne Kawabata, and I am so excited to have you here today. I'm a doctor of physical therapy, specialized in orthopedic conditions, but most of all, I'm just a passionate mom that's part of the healthcare team, and I want to share these fun and insightful conversations that I have with a variety of experts. We share up-to-date medical information and current best practices, all related to improving our health that's way better than your doctor Google search. From strength training and tips for runners, ways to stay strong and pain-free as an active and busy mom, optimizing your nutrition, recovery, and so much more. I hope this podcast helps guide you towards thriving in this life you're in, and thank you for listening in. Now, let's get to the show. In today's episode, I am joined by Dr. Jenna Mullen of Nalu Physical Therapy. Jenna is a pelvic floor physical therapist aimed at helping women prepare for giving birth. That's one of the many things that she does. There's a real fear out there in terms of giving birth, and I hope that when the woman that is fearful of giving birth listens to this, knows that there is a way to experience giving birth without fear, and knowing that she's done everything in her power to prepare for giving birth, because we talk about the things that you can do to prepare your body to give birth. Pelvic floor physical therapy is definitely one of those tools that you can utilize to aid in that experience, one of the most unforgettable experiences of your life. So she also shares her birth story. That's the majority of today's episode, and it's such a unique experience. And I hope you all find it very entertaining, but also insightful and very inspiring. It was a birth experience that didn't go as planned. As a sneak preview, she gave birth at home. Everything turned out fine, but it really has some twists and turns of this story, so listen in for more details. We learn about the role of a doula, what the Ferguson Reflex is, and how that aids you in giving birth, and the importance of relaxation and how to properly bear down on your pelvic floor muscles for letting baby out. We also briefly talk about how the traditional medical model doesn't always advocate for women enough in terms of prepping for birth, and even for postpartum care. So I personally saw Jenna when I was preparing to give birth. I saw her about my second trimester, and my whole goal was to minimize the amount of interventions that I would get in the hospital, and also just to learn how to coordinate the muscles down in my pelvic floor, because I really didn't have any clue what would happen down there. So I knew there was a specialist out there for that, so I sought her out, and I'm so glad I did, because my condition in postpartum I am really happy with, so I really attribute seeing her and getting that preparation done before giving birth, and then I saw her afterwards as well to make sure everything was healing and working properly down there after. So all of it put together, I really attribute the condition I am in postpartum today. So I hope everybody learns a little bit about what pelvic floor therapy is like, and hopefully you utilize this set of skills in preparation for your birth. So I truly hope you enjoy this episode, and here we go. Good morning, Jenna. How are you? Welcome to the
Good
show.
morning, Adrienne. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I just want to do a little intro. Jenna Mullen, she is a pelvic floor physical therapist here on Oahu, Honolulu, Hawaii, and she has some really great stories to tell us, and is a wealth of knowledge for all the women out there. She personally was my physical therapist throughout my pregnancy and postpartum, so she's a gem for me. So I really want to help share the knowledge that I've learned through her, and have her tell her story about who she is a little bit. So I just wanted to have my little rundown about my personal
experience with Jenna. So yes, so I'm really happy to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, Jenna?
Yeah, so I am, and that was a great intro. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm, yes, a pelvic floor physical therapist. I've been working in the, realm of pelvic floor physical therapy for about 10 years. And it's kind of always been like on the back burner for me is something I've been passionate about, but not something like that I wanted to fully like dive 100% in, like and do full time because it can be heavy work.
Mhm.
And I always kind of wanted to, um, work like with anybody, not just like niche and be able to help just a certain group. I did mission work when I was younger and just kind of felt like, man, you really can make the most impact with, being able to help whoever comes in your door. And with mission work, you don't know who's going to come in your door. It could be an adult, a kid.
Mhm.
And so I always wanted to keep my skills like broad and general, but I just feel like over the years, like this is just something that's been calling me and has just felt so um good to help the women when I'm able to impact their lives in this deeper realm that with issues that a lot of women, aren't talking about, can't talk about. Like, um, so so the pandemic hit and I was working just kind of PRN, like, a little couple patients a week at a clinic here in Oahu. And the pandemic hit, and some of my patients that had babies, like they couldn't come in because they couldn't find childcare. And the clinic, one of their rules was
Mhm.
only the patient can come. They can't have any like
This is when
family
you
or anything come.
this is when you're doing pediatrics in the schools, or was
Yeah, so
yeah,
that was my full time.
yes,
Yeah, so
yeah.
I was
So
doing
Jenna is
pediatrics in the schools. Yeah.
yeah, I know. It was you
Yeah.
did more than pelvic floor therapy. So yeah, you're you first started off in pediatrics in the schools.
I would say that, well, yes, that was my first like real job, but I was
Okay.
doing so much like before that. But yeah, that and I didn't think I would like stick with it, but I'd been doing it 8.5 years.
Yeah.
So that was my full-time job. But then the flexibility with the schools, it's the schedule is amazing. And so I
Mhm.
felt, with no kids of my own and my husband and I just enjoying Hawaii, I had time. So I would, work with patients like after school hours or weekends. And so that's when I would do like pelvic floor therapy. Or
Okay.
even like before that was even like working in skilled nursing, so
Yeah.
I've done everything and worked with
Yeah.
all, people of all ages. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
been an
And
amazing run. So
we met in outpatient in the outpatient clinic. Yep.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So this is where we met, Adrian, is the
Yeah.
clinic I was working at, doing pelvic floor therapy. And
Mhm.
then yeah, so then when the pandemic hit, I had this thought like, man, it'd be really cool to have my own practice one day, right? That was just like a dream, like later on one day. And then we're all sitting at home, like wondering if we're going to have jobs and wondering like what's going to happen. And so that's when, I saw these patients not being able to get therapy and thought, why isn't there like in-home pelvic floor therapy? And so that's what I created. And so my
Yeah.
business, Nalu Physical Therapy, NALU, which is a Hawaiian word that means wave. Um, and there's meaning behind all of that, but to stay on track here, I started that business with my husband, he being like the back end and my biggest support and biggest fan.
Yeah.
And then I just wanted to help women that couldn't come into clinics because we didn't know how long this was going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's how Nalu Physical Therapy was born. And that was when I like, the first time I was really like starting to really focus more on pelvic floor therapy.
Mhm.
But kept my school job. I'm loved, my kids and the people that I worked with in the schools, and just I still feel and felt like that was where I was really making a difference. but also feeling this calling to just kind of keep making a difference in, another way and keeping my skills fresh in both areas. So, yeah,
So
so since 2020, I had my own practice and it's just grown and developed and
I know,
yeah,
like
changed since
that's
then.
that's so cool because you transform what a scary time was. Like, am I gonna have a job? And then like a scary time for women at the time, like how am I gonna get therapy? Like,
Yeah.
so you've spun it into your own positive way for not only yourself, but all the women that you've helped so far. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
And now Nalu is growing. So tell us how, because you started Nalu before you became a mom. So tell us how Nalu has helped you, not only your lifestyle, but just overall, like how it's changed throughout the last couple of years.
Yeah. I feel like I kind of have to give the backstory a little bit that I've kind of come into, well, physical therapy first of all, but then also specifically women's health from
Hmm.
my own personal issues and things that, I've
Yeah.
had an experience since I was young, and I have scoliosis and had that pretty significantly to where I had to wear a brace, and it wasn't just like this thing. It was like
Mhm.
part of my life and who I was. And the healing that I had brought me through to physical therapy. And then when I was sitting in PT school class, we had a lecture, just one class out of like a whole 3 years, that was about pelvic floor therapy. And it, like, some of the techniques that was taught in that class, like, I had personal benefit from. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I
Yeah,
didn't even know
it
this was
spoke to
out
you.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really
So
cool.
yeah, so then that, led me, that was where, like, more women need this, right? And
Yes.
then, um, I had all these issues that women that, maybe had their like third kid were like, oh man, I'm starting to like pee my pants now. And, like all
Yeah.
this, I'm like, girl, like, I already have back and pelvic pain like daily, right? And I have to do so much just to keep that at bay, to just like feel good and stay active. And then I already like could, deal with like urgency and, peeing my pants a little bit. Am I gonna make it to the bathroom? Like,
You know what it's
full
like to be in their
yeah,
shoes. Yeah.
yeah, just being honest here, it's like,
Hmm.
and so I had this fear of like ever having a baby and having, getting pregnant. And so I just thought my body would be wrecked if I ever did, and be potentially debilitated, just all these like
Yeah.
heavy
It's a true
dramatic
fear.
thoughts.
It's a
But
true fear
yeah.
for women, even without pelvic floor complications before pregnancy. They just have this fear, like, oh, I'm never going to have my body again. And
Yes.
so the fact that you have were experiencing pelvic floor issues before your pregnancy and coming out of it still like healthy and strong with with tools that you've implemented yourself and everything. So I really want to ask you like how you've prepared your body for pregnancy, during pregnancy, and how your how you gave birth. And I know that's a lot, but so let's start with like how did you prepare your body for pregnancy? Was there anything you did special?
Yeah. So, having that like fear mindset of like, I don't know if I can ever have a kid. And then, us getting pregnant essentially. I've been married 10 years and my husband and I are like, nah, I don't know if we need kids in our lives. Like, we're having fun. And then, lo and behold, we have one on the way. It's like I just tried to dive into all the, education that was out there for physical therapists in this field, pelvic floor, but also just orthopedic in general,
Mhm.
and just tried to learn as much as I could for myself, but also for future patients. Um, so that I could get past that fear. And oh my gosh, that journey of like learning how our bodies, can work. And it went from like fear and having all the tools, and I'll dive into that a little bit more, but like all of that led from like fear to just this awe of, being in awe of like, wow, like our bodies can get through this, but also you can potentially be like a better person, and like learn about yourself through this
Yeah.
whole experience. It doesn't just have to be like I had a baby. Like, yeah. So yeah, from fear, it's like the tools that I had like really set me up for success. And in quick summary, I was thinking about having a home birth because I was feeling so confident, but my husband and I, working with kids with special needs, like certain things can happen. And so we chose a hospital birth, but I felt so calm and confident. And yeah, my son actually ended up coming so fast. He was born at home. And then we went to the hospital a few hours later just to make sure we were all okay. But the some of the tools that I think helped me get to that place of peace and calmness was um working on relaxation techniques, understanding that it wasn't about strengthening, the pelvic floor, and your core. While that's very beneficial and helpful, and I promote that, for birth specifically, it's so much about relaxation and those muscles being able to lengthen and let
Yeah.
go.
Yes.
Um, and so that's really, been, I think, the key point in working with women now. Like what I think I'm helping them the most with that piece. Um,
I can speak to
but
that.
yeah,
That
yeah,
was so hard for me to do that. So I'm so glad that I met with you during my pregnancy to at least like learn that awareness of what my pelvic floor was doing for that lengthening, because we all learn how to like hold in your pee, hold in your fart, hold in your poop,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then hold it in while I'm weightlifting. So it's like there was no like, why would I relax? I only relax if I have to poop or pee,
yeah.
right? But when you think about it, birth is all about relaxing your pelvic floor and birthing a human being. So it's I want to I mean it's something that you feel would be intuitive as a woman, but certain things can definitely facilitate that to be a better experience. So you've told me your birth story before. I really want to share it with the world, Jenna. Are you ready?
Yeah,
I
let's
think
do
I
it.
really, because you planned a hospital birth,
Mhm.
and so what happened? What happened at home? Why did you have a home birth? So that's the
Yeah.
curious part that I'm hoping our listeners like, wait, she said hospital, but she gave birth at home. Tell us more
Yeah.
about your home birth.
Yes. So we hired a doula
Mhm.
because I wanted, in learning about everything that our bodies were capable of doing and then feeling empowered with the tools um, that I've learned and applied, I was like, okay, I got this. Um, and I wanted to like keep it as natural as possible. And I had the conversations, semi were uncomfortable, but like with my OB and explaining like that I wanted to really try, to have a natural birth and be able to get in the positions that I felt comfortable with. Um, so we hired a doula to help me remember
Mhm.
maybe those positions or help me to breathe, things like that, or just to feel supported laboring at home as long as we could. And then, going to the hospital like right before,
And
because
be
those
your
things,
advocate, because when you're
yeah,
in labor, you're not thinking straight. Like you don't know what's going to happen. You've never given birth before this. So it's like, I need somebody on my side that knows what I want. And though Hugh is like a huge supporter, your husband is a huge supporter, it's like the doula is the expert and she knows how to kind of facilitate what you want to happen. So that's really cool that you,
exactly.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And we also hired her to help him because he's such an amazing man and wanted to have an active role and be able to support me in any way that he can. But I also recognize that like he needs support. This is his first time. It's not, while it's very much about me and baby and our connection and that situation, like he's going through this whole experience. And so
Mhm.
we specifically asked and hired the doula that was willing to be there for him because some are just there for the mom and they're like nobody else matters, but
Mhm.
she was so open to that. So we had an amazing doula is my reason for saying all of that. And and so she also had only really helped like in the hospitals. She had been part of like a home birth team like in her training, but she's never done a home birth like many doulas do. We hired her specifically to support us in the hospital.
Uh-huh.
And so yeah, so that sets us up for
Good job, Jenna.
yeah. And a new experience for all.
Uh-huh.
But so I decided to work up until, baby came. That's just kind of
Mm.
how I am, and wanted to keep my mind focused and not worry about things. And so our due date was that Saturday. It was like April 4th, I think it was. Yeah, April 2nd. And then I had to get through a couple meetings, and that was like Monday had a meeting and Tuesday had a meeting. And so I was telling baby, okay, you can come anytime after that meeting. And I still had work, lined up for those days, but it was going to be a lot more flexible. And so I had that meeting that day, and I woke up and just kind of felt more like heavy and tired, and I had this like back ache. And I'd had that before, but anytime I like would just go to the bathroom or something, then that would be relieved and I could carry on. But it was not going away. And so I just kind of felt more crummy that day. And then I was going about my day and had that meeting in the afternoon. And they had asked me, like, hey, if you can walk across, and come to the office for the meeting, or you can stay virtual. Thank you, COVID, for giving us virtual meetings. But I was like, I'm just gonna stay here and do it virtually. So this just kind of shows you, like, I was not feeling like energetic that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I came home after the meeting and I rested. And my husband, like, we didn't really have bags packed, especially him. We didn't even have the car seat in the car. Like, we were not thinking like ahead, one step at a time kind of thing.
So the
So
day
I
of your
get
backache,
home.
that was a Monday or the Tuesday?
It was a Tuesday.
There was
Yeah.
the
So
last day of
Tuesday.
meeting. Last
Yes,
day of your
yes,
meeting.
yes.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Baby
Yeah.
held on for the most part.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I feel like we had this communication, from the start. I'm always like, we are a team, and
Yeah.
just try to like send good vibes and like we're a team working together. So he listened. I got through that last meeting I needed to. And then and we didn't even know it was a boy. I say he because we know now, but we had no idea.
Yeah.
Actually thought it was gonna be a girl. But so, and then I had a 4 o'clock patient with my business, and I let them know, like, hey, I might not be coming. I might be in labor, like,
Yeah.
because I came home and I rested, and I tried to get up like a few minutes before I needed to leave, and like the back pain was like way worse. And I couldn't even like stand up without like, significant pain. So I let him know, like, I might not be coming, but if this isn't labor, I'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was just like
Right.
looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, girl, you're crazy. But
Yeah.
but they were so understanding. More, I think people knew more of what I was
Mhm.
going through than I was.
Mhm.
So then um my husband, when I canceled that appointment, he's like, oh, okay, this is real.
Yeah.
And so he's like, should I put the car seat in the car? I'm like, yes. Let's just do that in case. And
Uh-huh.
I reached out to the doula, and I said, how common is like back pain at this point? And she's like, it could be contractions that are just presenting in back pain instead of like, your typical, like, I guess, abdominal discomfort, right?
Mhm.
So she gave me this app, and like I'm able to track the contractions.
Yes.
Um, at that point, it was just the backaches, and to see if there was like a rhythm to them, a cycle to them. And so that was around 4 in the afternoon. And then my husband and I had this whole plan. He's the chef, by the way. He's a really good cook and baker and all that. We had this plan of like, I'm gonna have my last meal be this pesto pasta that he like made the noodles for. He made the pesto. We had it all like ready to go, but he just had to like make it. And then my he had these muffins that he was gonna make that were gonna be like my energy source if this was like a long labor,
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
then I would have them for the hospital.
That's
And
awesome.
so, yeah. Um, and so he had all that like ready, but we didn't know if he's gonna be making it on a Tuesday afternoon or a Friday morning. And so he's like, okay, should I make the pasta? I'm like, yeah, make the pasta.
Yeah.
And so I'm tracking my contractions on the app. He's like in the kitchen cooking, got the car seat, set up.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm doing like I had work that I still had to be doing for one of my PRN jobs. I
Yeah.
had to do this annual training. So
How
I'm like,
far
oh
apart were
shoot,
your
I haven't done
contractions at
that.
that point?
They were, I'm sure, like like not a few minutes, like probably like 10 minutes or
Okay.
so. But to
Okay.
be honest, I don't know. I
Yeah.
wish I could like look back and see that like the app, but it
Yeah.
was a recording in real time. It wasn't like
Mhm.
recording for
Yeah. I also
longevity.
used a
So
similar tracker. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So it wasn't that close together. You still wanted to do some kind of work, crazy
Oh
lady.
yeah.
Okay,
And
sure.
I was so in denial, Adrian. Like
Yeah.
I'm just like, well, this still could be back pain.
Yeah.
But I was writing emails to people like, that I was supposed to see this rest of the week. Like,
Mhm.
I think I'm going into labor,
Yeah.
and but I'll let you know, like, and I was getting replies like, rest, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
don't come in this week.
I feel like I was
Um,
also in denial too, because it's like, is this really that painful? Like, no. Okay, and then it comes again, like, oh, wait, maybe, yeah. So I get it. I was
yeah,
also in denial, but it's funny what we do during that time.
yes, totally. And I'm actually glad that I still had like this like training, it's all like online and stuff. And I was to do, but it kept my brain focused on something else.
Mhm.
And so I was able to just kind of like lay in bed. I went from the
Yeah.
couch to the bed to like just work on this training. And most of them are videos, and then you answer a few questions. So I'm like laying in bed because that was the only place I could get comfortable. And so time passes, I'm doing that, and it's now around 7 o'clock. And I've just been breathing through the what are I now know are contractions, but then it was just like back pain, discomfort.
Yeah.
Um, and my husband gets a text from the doula who says, I'm on my way. And he's like, she didn't want to bother me, right? Because she thought I was like in Zen mode or,
Mhm,
dealing with
mhm.
all this. So he peeks in, he's like, oh, Teresa's coming. I'm like, what? Oh shoot, it's getting real now. As if it wasn't before, right?
Yeah.
so so she lived about 45 minutes away, so she comes over at 7:45, and I was almost done with like the last training video that I had to do. And so she
Okay.
comes in, and he's in the kitchen cooking pesto pasta, and
Uh-huh.
I'm in bed like working on work, and she's like, this is not the vibe that I was expecting.
Uh-huh.
And she's like in her scrubs, like ready to go. And
Uh-huh.
and so I'm like, well, I'm doing good. And I remember like trying to talk to her and like having that discomfort and like still like fighting it off. And I think that's probably part of like how I've lived my life, right? It's just like these some discomforts and it's like you still have to carry on. So I'm like, I'm still trying to look okay. And she saw that and she was like, you can like stop talking and like breathe, like if you're
Uh-huh.
feeling this. I'm like, so she was so good to give me that permission to just like lean into that
Yeah.
feeling, and be present with it. And so yeah, so we were kind of in this like stage for probably an hour or so of like she would come in, check on me. I finished my work around 8, close the
Yeah.
computer. And then, she'd be there like having, talk to Hugh and she got pesto pasta. We all ate. Like it was, great. I'm like still laying in bed eating because I couldn't get comfortable any other position. But um I once I was done with work, then I started like moving around and trying to get more comfortable and breathing more. And it was starting to get more intense. So I would say like, yeah, 8-ish, o'clock on, it was like that slow build of like getting more intense. But she had that, like, she's like, I don't know, like you're doing good. Like maybe baby's coming soon, but it also could be another day or two. Like we don't know.
Mhm.
And then I do have to preface that I had done training for relaxation. Yeah, Hypno Babies was the company, but it was really powerful. So I was able to like come into this relaxated state that I think really helped take that edge off. And so
Okay.
I think I seemed a lot more like relaxed and chill than she was used to. So she kind of was like, it could be a day or two. And then I was feeding off that vibe of like, well, she's been through this before. I haven't. Like, maybe it is gonna be
Yeah.
a longer, a day or two. Like,
Mhm.
this is a lot more manageable. Like you were saying, Adrian, like, is this really painful? Nah, it's not too bad. Like,
Uh-huh.
um, so I don't think anyone really knew how far along it was, right?
Mhm.
And when she had gotten there, I stopped tracking. So I wasn't like really seeing, and she wasn't seeing just maybe how close they were together.
Yeah.
So at that point, I could feel like my intuition was like, things are happening, girl. Like, so I'm like, okay, I really need to like finish packing my bag. And then everybody had told me, like, I'm
You
like
didn't
walking
pack
around
your
the
bags yet
bathroom. Like,
because Hugh
no,
was doing the pasta, not packing the bag.
yeah.
Food.
So after, yeah, so
Um,
exactly. So he's not packed at
yeah,
all.
because how
My
chill you
clothes were
were, he
packed.
probably didn't realize how far along you were. It's like, okay, pesto over packing. Okay, got it.
No, it was pesto over moving to muffins.
That's right. Okay, pesto and
Yeah,
muffins, and then packing.
muffins, right? Yeah, you gotta have your muffins, right? So, what's labor without some good muffins?
Hmm. Yes, we need the
Um,
energy.
yeah, so he started, yeah, baking these muffins, and they were pre-made. Like, this lady at the farmer's market that I adore that makes like healthy foods, and she has these pre-packages. So it's just like the mix and then, some water, and they were easy, but
Mhm.
still takes time. And so then I don't know, it's maybe like getting close to 9 or so. We don't have like specific timeline, but and I was feeling like, okay, I need to take a shower because my mom, every other like mom in the world told me like you should take a shower before you go to the hospital because you don't know the next time you're going to take a shower.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
okay, this could be a marathon labor is still like what I was thinking.
Uh-huh.
So I asked, we have not like a tub shower. It's like a rectangular shaped, easy to walk into kind of a shower. And with a curtain and everything you could pull back. So it was kind of roomier. And we have a yoga ball at the house. And so I asked the doula, like, can you get me the yoga ball? Because sometimes now when the labor, or sorry, the contractions, but
Contraction.
the back pain, it was still just like intense in my back was coming, I like would just like I'd have to lean on things. Like, it was intense, but then it would go away.
Yeah.
So when it would come on, I would just like I couldn't really even stand. So I in taking a shower, I thought, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to stand. And so I asked her to get the yoga ball, thinking I would sit on it and just like wash my hair, wash the important parts, and then we'd go to the
Uh-huh.
hospital kind of a thing. Well, as soon as she brought it in, all I wanted to do was just lay over it. And so I got down on my knees and put the ball in front of me and just like, put my hands over it and then rested my head on the ball. And thank God for her. She put a towel underneath my knees and it just made it so comfortable at that point. And so I
Wow.
wouldn't slip around, and the water was like running on my back, which, was so relaxing. And I just started like, it was getting really intense at that point. And then I asked my husband to bring the speaker in that had this track that was like all like positive birth affirmations. And
Mhm.
so he played that, and it brought me from like this, I might be losing it. Like, it's getting so intense that, I'm kind of coming out of that like calm then, and felt like I might lose control of that and it get too intense for me to handle. And then when he played that, it just like brought me back down into like this peaceful um place where I could then just focus on like each, what was contraction, each like discomfort that I was feeling was like bringing me closer to baby. And
Yeah.
it's like I feel safe, all these things that just felt really calm. And I think that just like really made baby feel safe, and calm. And so at this point my water hadn't broke, and I'm just laying there, and at I didn't know this, but our doula went out into the kitchen and was like, you better pack the bags. And he's like, oh shoot, like, so he starts packing the bags. And then at that point, so nobody was with me at that point, but my body contracted. And it's this reflex that we have that I learned about, but I hadn't, really like experienced, obviously, but like a lot of women don't experience it, but it's called the Ferguson reflex. And it's where, yeah, your body like contracts. So I didn't push at all. And my body contracted. I could feel it building, and then it pushed. And I felt the amniotic sac come out. And so
Yeah.
yeah, disclaimer, this is getting real. Like
Yeah.
I'm
So
yeah.
something came out, the water sac, the amniotic sac.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, the water essentially it felt like a water balloon.
Yes,
And
I remember that.
yeah. And
Uh-huh.
so
Okay.
like and being the physical therapist, all the training I had, I knew exactly what was happening, exactly what that was. And I was like, okay, we're
Uh-huh.
not going anywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I felt it and I was like, okay, I know what this is. And I called to the doula. I'm like, I don't know what was actually said, but this is what was going through my head. So I called her in and and I was like, we're not going anywhere, And I said, I think, the water sac just came out and she kept her cool and played it so calm and was awesome through this whole thing.
Yeah.
I imagine she was
Oh,
like freaking out,
her
but
her first home birth. Maybe.
yeah, her
Yeah, was
first
it?
home birth.
Oh my
Oh
God.
yeah.
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 Okay.
Well, she had said she'd been at, a team, but like by herself, like
Yeah.
never, and she wasn't trained for this. Like she technically wouldn't have been if this wasn't, you know,
Unplanned.
um, yeah, if this was unplanned. Like, um, a midwife in this situation was the one that would,
Mm.
have been there to support this situation, but she did amazing. Um, so she kept her calm and cool and she was like, oh yeah, like you're right. And then she walked out. She's like, I'll be right back. And she walked out and said to Hugh, she's like, you better get in here. And he's like, I just put the muffins in. She's like, don't worry about the muffins. And so he comes in and he like always wears board shorts and a tank top. So he's like, what do I do? She's like, get behind your wife and catch the baby. And he's like, okay, like takes his shirt off. So he's just in his board shorts and he gets behind me. And then she's sitting at my head. And I'm still on the yoga ball, like in the shower. And I think at some point somebody like turned the water off. But he sits back there and she's like, okay, soon. Oh, he was like, I think I see hair. And so there was just like, that little bit of showing and crowning. And she's like, okay, it's that, eventually like the head's gonna start coming out. And so I could feel my body contracting again. And the best way I can describe this, it's like, if you're sick and like you have to throw up, like you can feel that coming, like your body's like getting ready. And so
Uh-huh.
it's that, but it's like opposite, opposite direction.
Uh-huh.
And so it's
Uh-huh.
like I can feel this building and I'm like, okay, it's coming again. And then I'm trying to like stay calm and breathe through it. And then like his whole head came out.
But
And then
you
he's like,
weren't
"Oh my gosh, we have
actively
a head."
pushing.
No, I
This
was
was
not
all the
actively
Ferguson
pushing.
reflex.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And um so then she was like, "Okay, now, the head and the shoulders is going to start coming out and the body's going to start coming out." And he's like, "Okay." So then he's supporting the head and then I can feel it coming again. And I'm like, okay, it's coming again. And then my body contracts again and his whole body comes out. And Hugh catches the baby and just like all in one
Oh,
swoop. And he's
wow.
like, oh my gosh, we have a baby.
And you're
And
on all
remember we
fours
did,
over the ball still. Okay.
yes,
And he was
yeah,
behind you. He caught what now is your son who
yes.
said it's a boy.
So he's like, we have a baby. And I said, what is it?
Uh-huh. Okay.
And he's like, oh my gosh, like we're just like shocked, So
Yeah.
he's like, oh, we have a boy. And I was shocked because again, everybody thought I was having a girl. I don't know why, but But yeah, so it was like such an amazing moment to like find out at that moment too. Like you have a boy and um yeah, we were both like just on cloud nine. Like I'm sure, a lot of it was hormones, but we were just like giddy and like laughing.
Yeah.
So I sat back and I'm just sitting against like the wall in the shower and he was holding Emmett and then he passed Emmett to me and we're sitting there just like laughing and kissing and the doula she's also a photographer. She
Oh,
didn't have her camera, but I'm so glad I asked her, if, there's opportunities like, be your doula first, obviously, but like, take pictures if you feel comfortable, like if you can.
yeah.
And so this whole time, she's taking video and photos and stuff.
Oh my
So it's
gosh.
pretty amazing to look back at those. But um, but we're sitting there on cloud nine, and all of a sudden his phone goes off and this timer goes off. And we're like shocked. And
The
we're like,
muffins
what
are
is
ready.
that? Yeah, and he's like, oh my gosh, the muffins.
Oh my God.
And so he pops up and like goes to get the muffins out. And we were thinking back, like, that's a 20-minute time.
Mm-hmm.
So Emmett was born like in 20 minutes, from when
That's
he put the muffins in.
amazing.
And she's like, you better get in there. And they came out perfectly.
Oh my
I still
gosh.
got to enjoy them in the hospital. So
So 20 minutes and you were just in complete zen and you were focusing on your breathing. And then obviously like you have that awareness of your pelvic floor and it just allowed Emmett to just come out. Like you're able to relax so much that the Ferguson reflex just pushed for you and your relaxation techniques and everything just allowed him to come out so easily. So,
yeah,
okay, please continue. So he came out, the cord is still on, right?
the cord, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The cord is still attached. And then for those that don't, know, I feel like this is the piece that isn't really talked about, but you still have, the placenta, the organ that's feeding baby and is
Yeah.
that, filter in that gateway between you and baby, that's still inside. And so after baby comes out, we women still have to deliver, quote unquote, this placenta. And so this is where it gets a little hairy because, there is a lot of bleeding and, things like that, which is normal. Um, but, I'm just so grateful that we were in the shower. Made for a little bit of
Yeah.
an easier cleanup.
Easier cleanup.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But
Okay.
all that to say there's that we still had to like deliver the placenta and the
Yeah.
cord is still attached from the placenta to the baby. And so we were on this short leash, Emmett and my son is now his name's Emmett. So um we had to like maneuver when I had to like it was kind of like a jump rope. Like I had to like get the cord, and maneuver like this baby attached like around my leg and figure out how to like sit
Oh my God.
comfortably holding this baby and then we had to figure out like what to do with the cord and um she's like our doula is like um I guess we could try cutting it and so and Hugh he's Boy Scout trained and everything he's like he jumps up this is when he can shine right so he goes and like cleans the kitchen shears and cleans like his
Oh my
Swiss
God.
Army knife kind of a thing. And
Stop it.
so he like disinfected them and he like shows up. He's like, okay, which one? And she's like, I don't know if I feel comfortable with this. And so she's like, you guys had this amazing experience. Like the last thing I would want is for you guys to like, something happen, like get infected or whatever. So we chose like we're just gonna leave them attached.
Uh-huh.
So I wanted like him to get all his blood, cord blood and everything and for it to not be cut immediately anyway. That was in like my hospital birth plan. So hey, got that taken care of.
Nice.
So he was attached for like a couple hours, probably like an hour and a half. I think it was
Oh my gosh.
yeah, from when he was born at 9:34 until we got to the hospital like around 11 at night. Um, during that time, from when he was born at 9:34 to um that time we went, we drove to the hospital, which was only like 10-15 minutes away. um we tried calling the doctor, like to just figure out like what we should do, because there was no like emergency. We didn't want like the ambulance coming, or anything. And
Mhm.
but we were having this whole conversation of like, what do we do? And I'm like, well, if the ambulance comes, tell them to turn the lights off because I don't want to wake anybody up. I just had this baby. I'm like thinking about like the
Jenna,
neighbors
you're
and
thinking
stuff.
about
Yeah.
everybody else except
Yeah.
yourself, but all
I
right,
know,
that's
right?
so you.
Yeah. But I still like, needed to deliver this placenta. And she was like, it should come out in like roughly half an hour. That was what her training said. Um, but at the same time, like this birth happened so fast. And so, um, yeah, it was taking its time. And I was trying different positions to see if it would come out, because in my mind, I'm like, I don't want to like go to the hospital with a cord like still attached to me. But if I deliver the placenta, then I'm no longer attached. Um, so I really wanted to deliver the placenta and then we would go. So that's what we tried for. And yeah, long story short, um I actually, like, we have a squatty potty, which everybody should get. No. But
Yeah.
I just ended up like sitting on the toilet and had my knees up and was able to relax, enough, and tried bearing down. Like that was when I tried my breathing and birthing techniques that I had practiced, but didn't actually end up using. I used them to help deliver the placenta. But really it just needs time. Like it has to detach from your uterus and then it
Mhm.
can, come out. And I didn't want to like pull on it because that can, just cause more bleeding.
Yeah.
So I wanted it to be delivered like in its own time, which took about an hour, which isn't too much, but it did kind of elevate, a little bit of that urgency that we were all feeling like, is everything okay?
Yeah.
So but yeah, so the placenta came out and then we're like, what do we do? And so we got a salad bowl, one of those metal large salad bowls, because it could easily be cleaned. And
Good
so we put the
call.
placenta in that. And then Emmett was now wrapped in this Disney Aulani towel.
Uh-huh.
And so
Oh.
he's wrapped up, and then the placenta is now in the bowl and the cord is attached. And so I had like I have these medical, they're like puppy pads, but they're called chucks. They're um and so I had that and I just kind of used that like as a, I guess essentially like a diaper,
Mhm.
and put on my sweats, my nursing tank top that I had, and then we drove to the hospital because I decided we're not an emergency, the hospital's close, they would come and we would be just driven to the hospital anyway. So Hugh drove us, the doula followed, and it's like 11 o'clock at night. So there wasn't traffic, like no one's on the road. And we let them know that we were coming. And so they initially were like, come through the main entrance.
Okay.
So we were driving for that. And then, like, when we were getting off the freeway exit, they called again and they're like, come through the emergency room. That's where like they want to do the initial check. So we're like, okay. And so we get there, and I feel bad now in hindsight. Like we didn't tell the doula that. Of course, like we're just thinking like get to the hospital.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But then she's behind us and she needed to park and do all that. And so she went to the labor and delivery entrance and we went to the emergency entrance. So we park our car, um and there's one person on my side and one person on Hugh's side. And the person on my side, they're expecting us, so he had a wheelchair waiting for us. And the person on his side is like the parking attendant. And Hugh rolls down the window and he goes, we're here for Jenna Mullen. We have a baby. And the lady's like, okay. And then the guy opens my door and he, has the wheelchair ready and he sees the placenta in the bowl and he's like,
Oh my
oh my
God.
God, he's like, you need a gurney. And he like leaves. And the wheelchair is I swear the wheelchair is like slowly rolling. Like he just like ditched it and ditched it. And I'm like, the
He freaked
gurney's
out.
probably for him, Yeah, he's
Oh my
totally freaked
God.
out. And so
And Emmett,
so
is
I
it like
grabbed
just chilling in his car seat?
well, I'm holding him,
Oh,
you
okay,
know.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
no car seat. So yeah, I'm like with the cord and everything,
I
we just
wasn't sure how that would have
yeah.
happened. Yeah, okay. Okay.
Right? Yeah, we didn't take time to buckle him in, but yeah. I would say in another situation that's American bad parenting, but in this
Hey,
situation it was what was called for. So
there's a bunch of kids that made
we
it
got
back
there
and forth.
safely.
So it's
Yeah. Exactly. So so yeah, I'm holding him in my left arm and the bowl with the placenta and the cord attached in my
oh,
right
that's right, because
arm.
the cord. Okay, yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh
So,
my
yeah,
gosh.
so we are a unit. He's
Yes.
wrapped up in his towel.
Oh
I
my
got my
God.
sweats on, and I'm like, okay, well, the guy's gone, so I was like, I can walk,
Yeah, you
and
walk to the
he's
car.
exactly. So
Yeah.
he left, so I was like, I'm just gonna walk in. So I get up, walk in to the emergency room, and Hugh follows behind me, but then the lady's like, hey, you need to park your car. And there's like nobody there, but she's like, okay. So, so he goes back and parks the car, but I walk into the emergency room and he said that was like one of the best moments. That was like a life-changing moment for him. He's like, it felt like you were like the doors were opening and you were walking through this hospital, like emergency room with a baby in one hand, a bowl, in the other. And he's like, it's like Dreamweaver. The music was playing in the background, like Dove should have been flying. Yeah, that was his
Next photo
moment.
shoot, call up your doula.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, dang it, she wasn't there for that. But so then yeah, he had to leave to park the car and then comes back later. And I walk into the emergency room and everybody has masks on, and so I can't see their faces, but I swear their mouths are like dropped open. And
Yeah.
I want them to know, like, hey, we're good, like this is calm. And so I'm just like, hi, how's it going? Good evening. Walking down the hallway, and they're like just standing there, like nobody's really saying or doing anything. And then somebody finally comes up, when I'm getting closer, like back here, like this is the room. And so they had the baby warmer set up and then like a bed for me. And so I give them the bowl and the baby, and they check him out and do his screen and like set him up for cutting the cord. And then they have me sit down and asking me all the COVID questions and all like taking my blood pressure, all that. And they're like, okay, well, you're good. And then he's ready to cut the cord. And I was like, oh man, like too bad like Hugh's not here, like he could cut it. And the lady was like, just cut the cord. We need to get this cord cut. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
well, I'll do it. He did enough. So I got to cut the cord.
Oh,
And then Hugh came after that, and somebody like turned to him and was like, well, that was pointless, which we knew that. We're like, everybody's fine. But it was nice to get that confirmation that like, his breathing was good. And
yeah, of
um
course. It's your
yeah, and
first
I was
baby, regardless. Like you want to make sure that
right
everything checks and balances and
for
he's
sure.
the right everything. I don't know. They do all kinds of little tests there. But I
Yeah.
mean, I gotta pause and rewind a little bit. The fact that you gave birth and then you gave birth to the placenta and then walked to the car, like, because when I gave birth, I stayed in the bed and they wheeled me to the next I it was the labor and delivery and then like the next room, right? So I didn't walk there. I kind of
Yeah.
stayed in bed the whole time. They just wheeled me over
Yeah.
in bed. So it's like the first time I took a step was like when I had to pee like a few hours later. I don't even know. But the fact that you were up and walking from the parking lot to the emergency room, like that says a lot about how strong your body is, Jenna. So that's so
Thanks.
cool. You
Yeah.
did amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, I didn't think about that actually, though, in that
No?
way. But yeah, I mean, I think I imagine
And
that
carrying your baby. And yeah,
and
and
carry,
it's
yeah,
yeah,
carry
and
my
the
baby.
placenta and your salad bowl.
Yeah. Yeah, my salad bowl.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like I had a really healthy birth, but then if I were to do that, I think that would have been like a lot. So you did great. You did great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. I think our body is just like if something needs to be done, you got to do it, you know? And especially like with having a kid, I think there's that whole like mama bear mentality, but like I didn't even like think about it because it's just of
It's
course I'm
what
going to
you
do
had to
that, you
do.
know? It's
You
what
had
you
to
had to
be out of
do.
the house. You had to get,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I walked here to the car. I don't need to be wheeled to the emergency room. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say too, you know, we had I'm thinking back now like while we were at the house and that like, you know, hour and a half when we were, you know, he was born and then figuring out like when and how we were going to get to the hospital. I have a blood pressure cuffs, you know, so we were monitoring my blood pressure.
okay. Good.
And then and I did feel there was that probably an hour or so. I remember like, oh, I need to lay down, you know, and so I was like on the couch trying to make these plans. And so I was aware that like my body had been through a lot and I needed to rest and I was like actively bleeding, you know.
Mhm.
But and that's normal, but you know, your body now has to get all that out that was keeping the baby alive and now it doesn't need to. But with that being said, it was not as dramatic or this yeah, yeah, huge situation that needed a lot of emergent care. And there's a lot of things to be grateful for in that situation that did happen that, you know, if it hadn't happened that way, we would have needed the ambulance. And so we were, you know, aware of all that and monitoring that. And our doula was aware of those things and, you know, being like, I think she felt like, oh, this is on me. You know, it's just, she was very much like, we should get to the hospital. Like, when we can, you know, I think now's the time, you know, that kind of a thing. But yeah, I think it was still like a very calm and um yeah, powerful situation. You're right. Like
Yeah.
our bodies are amazing and I'm grateful for all
With
that
the right
mine was able
with
to
the
do.
right tools that we're educated with, and like you knew how to relax, you knew what to well, I mean, to a point, what to expect with the knowledge that you have. So I feel like the fact that you had such a powerful and like positive birth experience, it sets you up for what you do for like a living, but your passion for helping women have a healthy pregnancy and birth and postpartum journey. Because it doesn't have to look like the movies. I feel like a lot of women have
Yes.
this idea of it's going to be this painful, like traumatic experience with, and it doesn't have it can look like a lot of different ways. And if everyone had the birth experience you had, granted, like probably in the hospital or however this woman wants to give birth, but
Yes.
you didn't know what to expect. You were just in this zen spot, and like it's hard for people to get to that point of relaxation. So
Mhm.
learning how to do that before giving birth is so powerful. Like knowing how
Yeah.
to control your breathing and take your mind off of the pain, and yeah, and have a natural
Yeah.
birth. But not everyone's is going to look like that, but at least to prepare, like you helping other women prepare their bodies for that kind of birth if that's what they want. And then
Hmm.
obviously educating them, and like, there's other options, and you have to be open to whatever, is happening in the current moment. Like what if your blood pressure wasn't stable or anything like that? There's a lot of
Hmm.
different things that can happen to women. So it can look like yours. So having you be that guide, that coach, that therapist for other women is going to be so cool. So I'm really
Yeah.
happy that you had that
Thank you.
experience
Yeah.
and shared it with us today. That's so
Yeah. Thank you for, yeah, give me the opportunity to share that because I
yeah.
do think we need to retrain our brains, reframe what birth can look like
Mhm.
in this country, but worldwide, but I think, you brought it up too, like movies and shows and stuff, and it's like so scary. And I had a
Mhm.
lot of fear around birth and pregnancy and postpartum as well, but just like you just think it's like this painful, fearful thing, and screaming and loud, and I was open to that if ours was, but I think with the training that I did, both physically and mentally and spiritually too, it's like it really set me up to have that calm birth. And I had the tools and I had the support in the people that I surrounded myself with that helped me stay in
Mhm.
that frame of mind. And it was so powerful. And yeah, there's a lot of factors that, yes, if they weren't in place, like it wouldn't have happened this way. But I think that there's so many healthy women that can have, a similar story, if they can tap into their power and are allowed to and want to. Some women do just want to like go to a hospital, like give me that epidural, like get this baby out, and we're gonna get along on with our lives, and like that's fine too. But I wanted to have a greater experience and learn about myself and learn about my power and my strength, and yeah, just have this be a life-changing event for not just, us as parents, but me as a human being and a woman.
Yeah.
And I had that. I'm just so like grateful and
And
um
for any woman that is hoping to learn more about their body during pregnancy and to have that preparation, both mind and body, like I I wouldn't I'm so glad that I met you because I am thankful that I had a healthy birth experience. Like, and you helped foster
yeah,
that to happen for me. So
thank you. Yeah, I was
yeah.
blessed to be able to work with
Mhm.
you. And yeah, you were one of my first, I mean, I think there was a few others, but at that time they were all like pregnant, and so I was working with women
Yeah.
during pregnancy and and sharing, what I had learned with them and you, and then it was awesome to see that like, hey, it worked for you too,
Yeah.
and we everyone has their own version of that, but that, you were able to relax and baby was able to come and
Mhm.
feel welcomed into this world, and he's
Yeah.
happy, healthy boy. You have one
Yes.
too.
And um, so I don't want to get on too long, but I'm really enjoying this conversation. So like you went to the hospital, Emmett was healthy, you were healthy, they checked you out. Your OB eventually came, correct?
Yes.
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 What
So
did he
finally we
actually
got in touch with her. Yeah. And Dr. Pratt, she's so sweet. So I was worried she was gonna be mad. Like, you didn't make it to the hospital on time, but she came in and she was like, what happened, so we like told her the story, and from the emergency room they had wheeled me up to the labor and delivery room where we would have been,
Okay.
and they wanted to like put the IV in, and I'm just like, no, like I'm fine, I don't need pitocin for hemorrhaging, like all these, things. I'm like, no, like I'm good, like just wait for the doctor. And so she came in, yeah, she's like, oh my gosh, in my 20 years, I've never heard anything like this. Like, you're such a rock star,
Yeah.
And then she did the whole like checkup, and she's like, oh my gosh, you didn't have tearing. And the labor and delivery nurse was there too. And she was like, oh my gosh. And she they they helped get like the blood clots and things out of the uterus to help make sure it, came back and healed. And and during that time, she's like, I've had women that needed epidurals like for this part. Like, are you sure you're okay? I'm like, it's not comfortable, but I just had a baby. Like, it's
The
fine.
worst part is over, really. I
Exactly.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So
Wow.
even the nurse was just like, oh my gosh, like you have a high pain tolerance or, something. So then they did that check. I was fine. They said we could have gone home, but they had recommended, baby stay 24 hours just to make sure, they're okay.
Mhm.
And it was also like almost midnight at that point.
Yeah.
So we're like, we're not gonna go home right now. Like,
Yeah.
just relax here and get
Yeah.
taken care of and get a meal and all that.
Mhm.
So we chose to stay the day and a half because we didn't want to get discharged at midnight.
Mhm.
Um, so we could have left, but we chose to stay and it was nice. It was great. Except for Mary walking in or Maria walking in at
Oh yeah.
5 in the morning when we're trying to get sleep and turning on
Yeah.
the lights, from
Yeah.
labs. I'm like, oh my gosh, could you have a
Yeah.
little more bedside manner? But for the
Yes.
most part, it was great. And
That was the
so,
best part. Is just being
yes,
woken
like,
up
come
and then
on.
checked on, and yeah.
Yeah,
That's too bad
yeah,
they turned on the lights for you. At least
right.
they didn't turn on the
Sometimes
lights for me.
they
They kind of
did.
just gently like knocked on the door, like, "Hey, sorry to wake you."
Yeah,
It
I would say
depends on
most
your
people
parent.
did that, but
Mhm.
yeah. But this in particular, not to throw one person under the bus, but most of the nurses, did that. And then this person in particular, I think had maybe been up since the crack of dawn, and it was the crack of dawn. What am I saying? But yeah, she like flipped on the lights, but she was the only person to do that.
Okay.
So
Still, yeah.
overall everybody was gentle about it, but yeah, so after we got the check and they did the weighing and all that for Emmett to make sure everything was fine with him that second time around. Then they took us to the room where we were going to stay, and yeah, then the whole like parenting journey began,
Yeah.
like,
Uh-huh.
okay. But overall, he stayed quiet, and we
Yeah.
just tried to, stay calm and get rest. And thank God, my husband, he was able to leave because during COVID, we were afraid, he wasn't able to like leave and come back. But they
Mhm.
said, oh no, like those restrictions are lifted, like you can go home and come back. So
Good.
he was able to go home and get our bags. We didn't even like bring anything because of just like that rush.
Yeah.
And so he, yeah, got our things and cleaned up, the house a little bit more. And so that when we came home that next, day and a half, we had a lovely, beautiful home to come home to. And um, he brought the muffins back, and we had actually made some cookie dough ahead of time. He makes these amazing chocolate chip cookies. And so he
Okay.
baked those for the hospital staff and our doctor and brought those as well. So yeah, everything worked out really well. I mean, I don't know. And nursing was a different story. I recommend everybody get lactation support because that's another thing that like you think our bodies are made for it, but some it works out beautifully for where the baby gets it and the mom's boobs are, ready and the latch is good, but sometimes it doesn't. And so that was another like, oh, got to figure this out now. But
Yeah. There's a lot of
yeah.
support that isn't, maybe, I don't know if I can speak for every OB and pediatrician out there, but there's a lot of support that isn't advocated for, like lactation
Yeah.
consultant, and even for you, pelvic floor therapy is not advocated enough during pregnancy with the OB. So it's like
No.
I planted the seed with my OB saying like, oh yeah, I'm seeing a pelvic floor physical therapist. She's like, oh okay. There's nothing like, I don't think she knew what it was, and our appointments are really like to the point, right? With
Yeah.
so I really hope that eventually like OB that the OB world will kind of pick up on that, like, hey, the rest of the world has pelvic floor physical therapists that help out like as a standard of care after giving.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that it's an option for women to get pelvic floor therapy before giving birth is makes it so much easier and more, the healing process is so much easier after giving birth when you have
Yes.
that awareness of what your vagina was like before, like having that pelvic
Yeah.
floor muscle awareness before it becomes basically injured after giving birth. And depend
Yeah.
the severity of the injury will just depend on how your body is, how baby was, how the delivery was, how how rough the OB was and doing that ring of fire thing. I don't know. But
Yeah.
the fact that our medical model doesn't advocate for it is kind of sad. So I'm hoping that this episode we can kind of like advocate for that, and then women can know what not only a home birth can look like, but a natural birth can look like. Um, because it doesn't, like we were talking about, it doesn't have to be this crazy painful experience that you're not prepared for and that you need drugs for. Sometimes you do, but for the healthy woman out there, I hope we like it speaks to her and that she's like, maybe I should get like pelvic floor physical therapy just to get an assessment on like how to relax my pelvic floor. What does that feel like? What is that? Because that's going to be what is going to have to happen when baby is coming through that birth canal. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was really thankful that I went through that process before giving birth. So, and the fact that you, I mean,
Absolutely.
you self-treated yourself and you educated yourself, but you are in a place to educate other women about this. So I hope
Yeah.
that other women out there can learn from this conversation that we had. And
Yeah.
yeah, and the postpartum journey is a whole other story, but we'll keep it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll do a part two another day. But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yes, the pre
But yeah.
preparation for birth and giving birth, that's such a beautiful story. So thank you so much for
Thank
sharing
you.
that,
It
Jenna.
makes a difference. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share that. And yeah, I hope more women, yeah, understand that there is help out there to set yourself up for success for birth, but then also to learn about your body and how to, do a proper Kegel. We've learned so
Mhm.
much like what a Kegel is, but really a lot of women aren't even doing them properly and then don't know how to relax. And so one thing I love helping women prepare for pregnancy and birth, but also during pregnancy, help them prepare for the postpartum period while they just have themselves to worry about. Because once baby's here, you're learning how to breastfeed, you're learning how to parent, you're trying to get as much sleep as you can. Like there's all these factors that make it more difficult. But if I can help them during pregnancy, it's like there's that time to focus on yourself. And
Yeah,
I think it really sets you up for success postpartum to feel more confident and prepared, but then to know how to like get yourself going. And you don't have to, wait for your OB to tell you, oh wow, you're still peeing a year later, like yeah, maybe we should get you some help.
yeah.
So
You don't
yeah.
have to wait for problems to arise to get treated. Yeah. So
Yes.
just real quickly, not quickly, but just can you describe what a typical session or at least the evaluation for somebody to get pelvic floor physical therapy? What does that typically look like? For let's say
Yes.
she's pregnant and
Mhm.
or yeah, she's pregnant and wanting to maybe she has some issues and she's just trying to prepare for birth. What this
Yeah. Yeah, so we usually start with a consult call just to make sure I'm, the right fit for you, you're the right fit for me, and then we schedule an evaluation. And then when you come in for that, I have a clinic, but I do also do in-home therapy too. So sometimes I do go to their home, but when they come to see me, then um, I do kind of that same, physical therapy, like I'm looking at your strength, your posture, making sure, there's your pelvis is symmetrical or figuring out why if it isn't. I also do assessments for the ligaments of the uterus. If I can help the bladder in any way, if a woman is having issues with incontinence,
yes.
there's things that I can do because I not only work on, muscle and bone, but I have taken lots of work to understand and work on the organs of the body as well. So specific to me, that's something I can check is to make sure there's room for baby to come out and maybe the uterine position is off and maybe that's why they're having pain. There's things that we can do for that. So I check on all of those things. If the woman is open to having internal exam, then I check the strength, coordination, endurance of the pelvic floor muscles. I help, make sure we're doing a proper Kegel, make sure she's able to bear down and lengthen. And then, everybody's different. So it really, the sessions are really guided by what, she needs, and by what she wants, right? Because some really want a natural birth, but some don't, or whatever the case may be. So I I tailor it to exactly what that woman needs and wants. But um, the majority, do want to make sure that they are breathing properly and that their pelvic floor muscles are working properly and have that full range of motion. So we actually then, and maybe this is more in like the treatment, we're just in the assessment trying to figure out what is happening with the body. And I try to give you some tools and um, just educate you on how your body's working. But if somebody really does need more of that support and understanding of how to help it relax more, how to yeah, breathe better, then we get into like those things and we actually practice like what that bearing down feels like. And I try to be that coach, like if you think about running a marathon, like some women just go out and like run a marathon and they do great and maybe they're just like an avid runner and never have issues, but some actually really need coaching and really need help, like in that guidance of how to run properly. So I'm like that for birth is kind of how I like vision it. I'm your guide and
Mhm.
I want you to go through the motions of maybe different positions, or maybe it's breathing with that bearing down, and to feel it before you go into birth so that when you're in that moment where your brain's in a completely different space, like I've been here before, I felt something like this before, I know my body knows what to do, I practice this. So that's what our sessions for the pregnant patient that's wanting to prepare for birth usually look like.
Yes, yeah. And I remember when I was in the later stages of my pregnancy, when I was seeing you, you gave me some tools to help learn how to stretch it, and we used the pelvic wand and everything like that. So that was a big
Yeah.
help. So just learning, there's a lot of different tools that um, you've taught you've taught me, and so anybody that's looking into pelvic floor physical therapy for preparation for birth, yeah,
Yeah.
this
And I
little
also do virtual. I do
yeah,
in-home clinic and virtual if there are people that, do need support. There's a lot of, education and that can be done, virtually. Unfortunately, I love um, that hands-on techniques that, we don't get, of course, if it is virtual, but there's so much that can be
yes,
done that can help prepare and just mentally like help you feel more calm and confident going into
absolutely. I
birth.
mean, the birth class that I took was all virtual, and it was so
Yeah.
powerful, and I learned a lot, and no hands were on me. It was just pure education and just practice with Kyle and my husband and myself. So
Yeah.
yeah, virtual is still very, very powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Well, Jenna, was there anything else that you wanted to add? I mean, I know we're going to have another episode together down
I
the line.
would
So
love to come back.
yeah,
Yeah.
but thank you
No,
so
I
much.
think this was awesome. Thank you for listening and for your listeners to listen and
Yeah,
just being able to share our what was amazing experience. But yeah, just how that's really led me to be able to help other women feel calm and confident and change the narrative of what birth can be like,
yes.
because it can
Yeah,
be pretty amazing.
awesome. Well, thank you for your time, Jenna.
Thank
We'll talk
you.
soon. Okay.
All right, thank you so much for listening in on today's episode with Dr. Jenna Mullen of Nalu Physical Therapy. If you want to learn more about Jenna and want to connect with her, please visit her website at naluphysicaltherapy.com, Nalu physicaltherapy.com. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I definitely am going to have her on again in the future because there's so much more that I'd like to discuss with her. So tune in for the next episodes in the future. Thank you so much for listening.